Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cooking with the Dad. Today's episode is really special to me because we're going to talk about a food that is central to our family and our way of life. My grandparents came to the United States in 1903 from Finland and went to the copper country. And my grandpa started working in the mines almost the day after he got here. First, the Baltic mine, which we're sitting in here today at level 4, and the Victoria mine. And one thing that the Finn miners found out when they got here was that the Cornish miners had already gotten here first, and they introduced to the Finns a new way of eating. And it's called the Cornish Pasty. But now we just call it the Yooper Pasty. It fits into the lunchbox real good. Comes out. And it's delicious. And it can be made ahead of time. It's a meat pie. And my dad learned how to make it from my grandma and grandpa, whom I never met. And then when he got married, he taught my mom how to make it. And then this recipe is the recipe that I got from my mother. So it's well over 120 years old. And all that work was to get this thing. Native copper. Native copper and pasties. That's all we got left here, us Finns. So let's get to it. I got to get the hell out of here before the cops come and get me, because this mine's been closed for 86 years. Welcome to Cooking with the Dad. To make pasties, you're going to make about somewhere between 6 and 8 pasties, depending on your size. You're going to need one large rutabaga, sometimes it's called a Swede. Who the heck would call it that? About 2.5 pounds of potatoes. I use russets, about 4 russets, but it could be a larger number of, for example, red potatoes. You could use yellow potatoes too. 1 large onion. I usually prefer a yellow onion because it's sweeter. About 4 large carrots that you'll peel. And then the meat. A pound of ground pork, and then either a pound of ground beef, bison, or venison. You could probably get by with lamb too in there. You got to be careful with that because you can get too strong of a flavor. You're going to need some butter and some salt and pepper. Pretty simple. And then for the crust, you're going to need about a pound of bread flour, and I recommend you weigh things because the amount of moisture in the air can affect measurements. 4 ounces either lard or duck fat, 4 ounces of unsalted butter, 2 teaspoons of salt, and then 2 eggs for the egg wash. You're also, of course, going to need some water to add. Now, making pasties is pretty time consuming. You got to chop a lot of vegetables, and you got to chop them pretty small. And you got to make the crust. It's not that hard. I would lay an hour and a half probably of time to make the pasties, and then you're going to have another hour to cook them. But here's what you're going to need. You're going to need about equal amounts of rutabaga, potatoes. Now you could use red potatoes or yellow potatoes. I guess I prefer white potatoes. I don't know. That's what we always used. Now I've got 1 really big yellow onion or 2 like medium, but yellow onion is a sweeter onion. And then carrots. We're going to peel those carrots. In fact, we have to peel all of these things. Be particularly aware, at least in Scandinavian parts of the United States, that rutabagas are going to come waxed. This whole coating is not only the skin, but the wax. So that peels off with a peeler. And then you're going to need meat. Pork, ground beef, and I like to use ground venison. Actually would be better than bison, but we don't have any venison, so I'd use bison. You don't have to. You could just be ground beef or ground beef and ground pork. Combinations of equal amounts of that seem to work out really well. I've never figured out what. I've also used lamb. Not a big fan of lamb. in it, but pork and beef work really well. Don't skimp out on the pork. Look at this carrot. It's a hairy carrot, a middle European carrot. Ah! You know, when I was a kid, my mom would make pasties. I'd take these peelings and feed the rabbits with them, rather than go in the compost, and they all died.
Because there was insecticide.
Yeah. Poor rabbits.
Animals around you had short and brutish experiences.
They did. But they lived exciting lives while they were there, and they got to eat potato peelings and rutabaga. I wonder if having the wax on the rutabaga did that.
Didn't help.
If you don't have a sharp potato peeler for these kind of things, you could use a paring knife, but paring knives, you got to be really good with it or you're going to lose a lot of the flesh. I think a potato peeler works just fine. Make sure you get all the wax off. See, it's nice and kind of beige and a little green hues. I guess in England they call rutabaga a Swede. Why do they do that?
Because Swedish, am I going to screw them?
Well, yeah, there you go. What's interesting about this is, I mean, these are all root vegetables that would keep for long periods in the wintertime. And they grew in shitty soil. There it is. That's sort of like the, what's that, bread plant? Is that what they got from Tahiti? Breadfruit. This is this is the
Breadfruit.
Yeah, this is Moses' gift of potato, or of rutabaga, to the Swedes and Finns. We're going to want a pretty fine dice on the... God, this is a big onion. On this onion. This is about how much onion you want. Onions really provide the sweet flavor. So peel it really well. Get all that onion skin off of it. So it's naked, it's a jaybird. And now what you want to do is dice it, cut it half through the core, the blossom. And then carefully, watch your effing fingers, cut about every 1/4 inch slices, not all the way through, but mostly through, like this. See, keep my fingers away, and then I cut along the grain at about 1/4 inch cuts to 1/8 inch cuts, really keeping my hand there so that it doesn't fall apart on me. And now I turn it the other way, so cutting crossways. And look at those dice that come out. Julia Child did proudly. And watch your fingers, especially when you get close, because especially if you don't have a sharp knife. And then you can do some chopping in there at the end. That's kind of the dice level you want to have. And the same one with the other side. I mean, you could probably use a slicer. You don't put these in a food processor because you're going to get things too fine. Use your frickin' knife skills. If you got a sharp knife, you're less likely to cry. I'm starting to cry. Onions make me cry. And these are pretty strong onions. There we go.
You have quite the devoted audience.
I do. Look at these Norwegians say, man, these guys know what the hell they're doing. Now some people stop right here with the vegetables. You got your carrots. I mean, you don't have your carrots. You got your rutabagas and potato and onions in here right now. And they sell things like that. I don't know why, but to me, the carrot's really important. And my mom always put carrots in it. And any of the better pasties I've ever had in the UP, including my own, have had carrots. So carrots require a little bit different kind of way to get a dice, and I'll show you how to do that. So depending on whether the carrot's a little carrot, here's that leg from that Middle European carrot. What you do is take you want about a 1/2 inch of thickness at the most, and then we're going to use all the carrot, by the way. And you cut it lengthwise, so you got a flat surface like this. Cut it lengthwise again, you're going to make sticks. The whole idea of dicing is you make sticks. Sometimes you can make 2 sticks out of this. And you know what, with carrots, I recommend you make small sticks. You want the carrots small. The carrots cook the slowest and are the rate determining step in this. Big carrots are also kind of yicky. I keep the carrots small, like this. Small dice. Keep your fingers back like this. There. That's kind of the size we want. So we're going to dice all these up. If you got a small carrot, I mean, you kind of do the same way. Keep them short, but you might only need to go like 1 stick. Like that. And you can also get really clever and cut like that. And like I said, boy, when you make pasties, your chopping skills get sharp fast. And speaking of sharp, see, I'm not chopping down, I'm sliding the knife in. I'm rocking the knife in. You got a sharp knife, you let the blade cut, you don't chop. These can chop, but it's a more inefficient way of doing it. Slice. So there we have it. We've got the mixture of our vegetables, again, onions, potatoes, rutabagas, and carrots. Kind of an equal mixtures. I'd probably go, if I went light on anything, it would be on the carrots. But you know what? There's no real wrong way or right way. Now this is a lot, but notice that they're small. And frankly, this is a rutabaga, and I would like to probably have done a little bit smaller. It makes making them a little bit easier, but it'll still work out fine. It'll cook out nice and it'll be delicious. And next we're going to add the meat. So I'm going to start with a pound of ground pork. And you could use chopped up pork too, I suppose, but let's just keep life easy. And I'm going to take my fingers with this and I'm going to kind of break the meat apart. So, you know, sometimes I've seen people using a semi-frozen and using a knife to chop it up. That someone, by the way, was me. And that works out fine too. Just beware that meat is going to have to thaw first. And frankly, you should have thawed meat for pasties. I think it's much better. Now, I heard somebody once brown the meat ahead of time. That's crazy shit. Don't do that shit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this just a little bit of mix because we're going to get mixed up more as things go. But I just want to, each time I put in a meat, I'm going to, so that was a pound of pork. Now, a pound of extra lean, could be anything. Cub food, whatever's on sale. I wouldn't advise the sell before midnight tonight. But so 1 pound of ground beef. Same thing, chopping it up with my fingers, just breaking it up. We're going to break it up more as we go along here because we're going to be mixing this and we're going to use our hands to do all the mixing. You can see how full this is getting. A brown paper bag is really a good way to mix a lot of this stuff if you don't have anything like a big bowl like this. And this bowl is pushing the limits here. And then finally, I can put in some more pork. I can put in some more ground beef, but I'm going to use this ground venison. It's lean. Just gives it a little bit of, I think, of an extra flavor. Don't have to do it though. Just my idea. Again, ground venison is really good. Venison pasties are so good. Used to make them up in UP a lot. I had people would give me ground venison, and I would store it all winter in the back of my pickup truck. And I would just go out there and get some and thaw it, and Bob's your uncle. I'm gonna wash my hands here a little bit because I'm gonna put some salt and pepper and a few other things. Okay, now comes the spices, which are so important in Finnish cooking. The most important spice in Finnish cooking, of course, is salt.
It's not a spice.
For Finns, it's a spice. And this is a kosher salt. This is a kosher sea salt. So this was blessed by the rabbis in Helsinki. And I'm going to put 3 teaspoons, maybe a little bit more than 3 teaspoons. Is there a risk of over-salting? No, not really. Not when it comes to Finns. Okay, so I put 4 teaspoons in there, 4 small teaspoons. And now I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of thyme, which is a little bit out of the ordinary. And then this would, my mother, certainly my father, would roll over in his grave if he found out that garlic powder was going into a pasty. But indeed it is. 1 large heaping teaspoon of it. And then finally, the second most important spice, pepper. And I'm going to use fresh pepper, which is really racy. And we're really trying to get about two teaspoons of fresh pepper in here. Again, there's no rules here except don't get too exotic here. Could you put cardamom in here? I don't know why you do that. Oregano, no. Sage, maybe. I haven't actually done that. That's actually not bad. Parsley, you could do in that there, but that would look silly. So yeah, I think keep it really simple. There we got all the ingredients for the filling, and we're going to mix that up with our hands really well. Make sure you wash your hands beforehand. I think that goes without saying. And what I like, when I first do it, I turn it over. This is really full. This is, again, imagine your hands inside a big brown paper bag doing this. Take your hands and you squish them together like this. Let them go between your fingers. Look at how it goes between your fingers. It really feels good. But you do this for about 3 or 4 minutes. You're trying to get everything mixed up. You don't want to have one pasty that has all the meat and then you wind up giving it to the person you don't really like rather than keeping it for yourself. Although if you make it, you always know that. But you want to get those 3 different kinds of meats mixed together too. And this is a great way to do that. Again, if you imagine trying to do this with frozen, it would not work. And do this around the sink because you're going to get some overflow. And my dogs know that overflow comes with pasties. And they're just waiting there like vultures. So now we have it pretty well mixed up. I'll do a little bit more. This reminds me about a couple other things to think about putting in. Not. One time my Uncle Steamboat was making pasties on the farm when we were visiting. I probably was, 9, 10 years old. And he was putting in a bit of Copenhagen snus into it and mixing it up. And my dad caught him and said, no, don't do that. But he said that it added a certain characteristic to it.
Gross!
Yeah. Now that we have our filling done, we have to make our dough for our crust. And the making of the dough is one thing. And then you have to give yourself about an hour to an hour and a half to have that dough, after we finish it, chill in the refrigerator so that it develops some gluten. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to handle. So we're going to take this, our meat, and we're going to cover it and put it aside. In the wintertime, I'd probably put that on the porch. I'm going to probably have to find a spot in the fridge, or we'll pretend that I actually give a shit about sanitary health conditions. And we're going to get ourselves another BFB, big frickin' bowl. Now, this is where if you had only one big bowl, you could go dump that other bowl contents into a garbage bag, not a garbage bag, a brown paper bag, if you hadn't mixed already. I've also done this with a small bowl and then put everything into a brown paper bag, but this is where you need a pretty good sized bowl. And we're going to probably make more crust than we need. History has shown, especially for novice makers of pasties, that you run out of crust before you run out of filling. So what we've got here is bread flour, duck fat, but I happen to have duck fat, which is really nice. But otherwise you can use lard that you can buy in the store, beef lard, and unsalted butter. And you put those ingredients together into a bowl, and then you work the bowl, the flour in your hands, rubbing your hands together. The idea here is you're starting with cold, not frozen, but cold butter and cold, or at least room temperature lard, and you're squeezing the flour together, rubbing it together to get a crumb. So you do this for several minutes. And once you got that, then you can add the water. But you got to work this really well. What you're trying to do is you're trying to integrate the flour and the two fats together. In addition to the flour, you're going to add in some salt. So what we have here, this is a double ingredient, but what you're going to have here is 1 pound of bread flour, 4 ounces of either lard or duck fat, 4 ounces of unsalted butter, and then 2 teaspoons of salt added to the flour before you put the fats together. Then you rub those fats together. It should take you about 5 minutes or so to rub this the flour and the fat together. And what you're looking for is a crumb like this. Nice even crumb where there isn't any chunks. In fact, you know, everything is reduced to a pretty small size. Now you're going to add cold water a little bit at a time. For a 1 pound batch, you're going to add about 6 ounces of water. This is a double batch, so I've got about 12 ounces. But I'm going to add a little bit at a time, not all of it. And I'm going to work that with my hands into a ball. When you've got the water well mixed in with the flour, you'll get a ball like this. Now, a lot of recipes say don't knead this dough. I'm telling you, knead this dough. When you knead it, what you're doing is you're going to develop the gluten. It's going to make a tougher crust than a pie crust. But you're not looking for a pie crust. A pie crust really doesn't hold itself well to hauling around. What you want to do is have more of a kind of a bread crust. So that's why we're using bread flour. And we're going to knead this for about 5 minutes on a work surface. And then we're going to put it in the fridge for 3 hours as a ball in order for the gluten to set. So you're going to work it. As you work it, it becomes more of a solid ball and less sticky. But it's going to help you a lot when you're actually creating the crust so things don't fall apart on you. And it's going to give more of a leathery crust, which is really kind of what you want in a pasty. You don't really want the pie crust. It's nice and flaky, have a pie crust, but that stuff falls apart so easily when you put it in your pail to take down in the mines. The dough now gets wrapped up in some plastic wrap and then put in the refrigerator to rest for a minimum of 3 hours. 3 hours is a good time. Lets the gluten establish itself. Okay, so now the dough has been sitting in the refrigerator for an hour and a half, and we're going to get ready to form the pasty. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the oven and preheat it to 350. Bake. And before it gets too much hotter, I want to make sure that we get our shelves right, because we're going to have at 2 and maybe more cookie sheets we're going to have to put in. We're going to need 2 big cookie sheets with rims, because sometimes these pasties could leak out some fats, and you don't want that to smoke up in the oven. And although it's not a huge problem with sticking, I do use aluminum foil in the pans. It makes it easier for cleanup. And I put just a very light coating of cooking spray on each one. Hopefully 2 is all we'll need. If we need to get a third one, because I'm doing a pretty good sized batch, we might need to go that route. One other thing that we got to know about here is things are going to get messy. It really behooves you to get yourself one of these things. Not necessarily exactly an apron. Yes, men can wear aprons. This is my apron with my signature sign on it. Because it's going to get messy, and you need to have a pretty good flat surface. We don't have in the house really good countertops, so I use this bread cutting board. I set it out on the sink like this, and this is going to be where we're going to do the work, and it's going to be a big work. And so you're going to need to do a couple other things. Cube up some butter, salted or unsalted. You want about 12 cubes, one for each pasty. That should be cold butter, and then you need a beer, because this is going to be some serious work, and you've got to have your flour handy. All right, let's get going here and set things up. But I want to tell you, and also a shortcut if you don't want to make your own crust. It's basically pie crust, you know. Maybe I can't find my thing. So I'm going to show you what you do here. You know, it's this shit. You got get this stuff here. Is that right? Yeah, like that. And these are too big, you know. I think they're like 12 inches, and you got to cut them down, and they're actually kind of a little fat too. You got to cut them down to 8 inches, and what I do is I use a pan measuring 8 inches, and here's what I do. I take a piece of it, and I roll it out. So what I do is a little bit of flour on here, and then I put this on here. I squish it down, and I pump, and then I squish it again, and that gets the flour on there. And then I take my rolling pin or dowel, and I slowly work it. Kind of push it a little bit. You don't want to work it too much because it's going to work the gluten out, and you don't want that. But you want to get it out. You're looking to get a roll that's about 8 inches in diameter. So you've got to kind of turn things around here to get that. It's getting there. Okay, I don't want to get too much. Now I'm going to put this on here, and yes, so take a knife, cut around, and this works with any kind of dough. I mean, whether homemade or this kind. Just take the leftover and you put it off to the side because you can use it again to do things. And now you need to take a spoon. I take a hand, and I get, that looks like about 3/4 a cup, maybe a little bit more. And I put it on one side of the circle. Now I get a little bit of water and wet a brush, paintbrush. Make sure it's a clean paintbrush. Just go around the edge, and roll this over and kind of tuck this in, and try to keep the crack from squeezing out. And kind of push down the edges. That the wet water, to get something to come out, just throw it back. The water will hold that together. And now you take a fork, and you take the tines of the fork, and you just work up around like this. And then you finish off by just 3 little slits here to let the air out. And then that's going to go on the pan, El Pano. I've already got some in the fridge. And we'll keep going on this. And then it goes in the oven for an hour. And if you do them in batches, make sure you keep track of that. There will be another step here in a little bit where we're going to put a glaze on top of it. It's an optional thing, but we'll get to that. Okay, I'm going to make an egg wash that I'm going to put over the pasties after about the 30-minute mark in the oven. So I got 2 eggs here. Add just a little bit of cold water. And we're going to whip this baby up. Doesn't have to be whipped up really well, just get it nice and stirred up like that. And then we're going to take ourselves a brush, and we're going to go over to the oven, and we're going to pull out 1 tray at a time and do this thing. Okay, these have been in for a half hour. You can see the start to cook now. This helps them brown up a little bit, and they get kind of a shiny glaze to them. This is an optional thing. I used to not do it. My mom never did it that I can recall, nor my dad. But I've had it in by other people's pasties, and I kind of like it. You can also use a whipped cream. milk, basically it's a heavy milk glaze. Never tried that. Save this for the other one. And this goes back in the oven for another 30 minutes and it should start browning out here pretty soon. Here they are, fresh out of the oven. I'll give them a couple minutes and then I'm going to take them off of this and put them on a plate. As long as when it's still warm, it's a lot easier to take them off. And you use, I like this thing to take them off with. Most of them come off clean, but every once in a while you get a little bit of burn on. And then you can serve them. God, I like it with ketchup. Some people have them with like a brown gravy. I think that's an abomination. Coleslaw goes well with it. But remember, these are super filling, so be careful. Let's cut into one of these bad boys and see what it's like. Oh, look at the steam coming out of there. Beautiful. Smells delicious. It's going to be hot, but I'm going to give it a try. I'll get a little bit of crust in there too. Mmm. Yeah, hot. Mmm, it's delicious. Probably could use a little more salt, but I'm pretty happy with it. Look at, when it cools off, you can be able to wrap these up and take them with you to the mines, and at the dinner pail break, you can open it up and have that with your buttermilk and be happy as a clam. Yooper Pasties, passed down from generation to generation. Here on Cooking with the Dad.